So we're here with Dave from QA1. Dave, last time you were here, we put a killer suspension under our 70 C10, and some of this looks familiar, but I don't remember any of this being available back then.
That's a good catch there, Bill. So way back when we put the suspension on your house vehicle, which consisted of upper and lower tubular control arms, coilover shocks, and basically everything you see on the outside here. And after we came out with this kit, after we did some installs, we kept getting requests for other things like drop cross member, rack and pinion steering, and things like that. So we got to thinking, if we could make a cross member and a rack and pinion system that worked with a factory vehicle and the system that we already produced, that would be a hit. So what we have today is a drop cross member with rack and pinion with the complete system that we just got done talking about. And what's neat about this is if you already own everything on the outside here, you've already purchased it and installed it, you can buy this drop cross member rack and pinion as a retrofit kit to install after you've already put the original system in.
So our truck we could upgrade then. So
Absolutely.
basically, since we have all this, or if anybody else has all this stuff,
Correct.
and they want that drop cross member,
Correct.
it can be available. So you don't have to buy the whole kit.
Correct.
So obviously, if you're starting from scratch.
Yeah, for clarification, if you haven't done any upgrades, you're going to reach out to hopefully QA1 and get a complete system as you see it here. If you've already put the system on that you have, which is everything on the outside here, and you want to put a drop cross member in, you can do that at a later date. So it's something you can do now or later.
Now tell us now, what customer is this for? I mean, what vehicle is going to fit, but who's going to benefit for something like this?
Yeah, good question. So all the C10 and C10 square body, all the way up to 87, basically it's for somebody that wants to drop their vehicle more than what the drop you have on your vehicle here is. So the original drop was like 1 to 3, now we're going 3 to 5. And if you have an aftermarket drop spindle, you can lower it to 7 or 8 inches. So you can get the thing right on the ground.
So if you really want it down there.
So it gives you the flexibility. And what's cool here is we have multiple mounting holes for the upper shock mount. And the reason you have that is when you lower a vehicle, you always want the shock to run or operate somewhere in the middle of its travel. So if you got it exactly where you want it and it's not quite at the travel point you want it to be at, you can always change the mounting point here easily right under the hood of the vehicle. So we try to think of all the scenarios that you'd run into if you install this and wanted to get that perfect stance.
Now for the customer who wants something like this, tell us about the shocks that are available. And obviously this is a demo unit we have here, so you have a couple different options on.
Good question. So the most popular shock would be our single adjustable shock. It has one knob at the base of the shock, and what you're doing is adjusting the compression and rebound simultaneously.
Okay.
And that works for the lion's share of the market, lion's share of the customers. Over here we have a double adjustable shock. It has 2 knobs, one for compression, one for rebound for the more hardcore enthusiast. And we also have an option with our mod series shock, which is a super hardcore shock for more of a competition level consumer. So you can pick out the shock valving, different spring rates along with the kit.
And then also, obviously, engine mounts too.
Yeah, and that's one thing I failed to mention earlier. So when you get the kit, the system, it does not come with any mounts, and we did that by design. So in the event you're not sure what motor you're going to put in it, or if you're running a traditional small block Chevy, you're going to put an LS engine in it later, you can buy the mounts when you're ready to do the engine swap.
Okay, so you can build a roller basically, figure out the engine, and then the mount would be second.
Exactly.
Now what about the rack and pinion that's included in this? I mean, tell us about that setup there.
That's basically a Dodge Dakota, late model Dodge Dakota power rack.
Okay.
So again, it bolts right to the cross member, fits nice and neat like you see here. And what we do is we give you all the hardware and everything you need to hook up the rack and pinion. In our instructions, we give you all the options as far as how to hook it up to your factory power steering and things like that. So we try to give you all the tools, all the instructions, and all the guidance to hook it up. So brand new rack and pinion, they're all power steering. And again, it comes with either the complete system here or the retro kit.
So that guy's just getting started with their truck, go the whole kit, but if you already have upgraded to QA1, you want some more low, the Crossmember is available separately to do that for you.
Yeah, and that was one of the challenges with the engineering team faced. It's like, well, if you already have a kit and then we make a Crossmember and it doesn't work with our original kit, it's like, well, no,
I would see this and want to put this on our truck.
They'd be all mad and they'd want to return it or whatever. So we did keep that in mind, so it works with either situation. But The mounts was something important. That was probably the third thing we got asked about. Well, I want to put a different motor in my vehicle. How do I do it? How do I move it around? So we have traditional mounts, and then we have DIY mounts that would be for somebody that wanted to maybe relocate the motor in a different spot if you have different power adders and things like that. So we have multiple engine mount options that you could purchase, again, a la carte.
So when someone's going to install this, obviously I notice these bolts are really long here because we're going to get a frame rail in the way there. Now, is there any modification necessary to the frame assembly, or is this a bolt-on kit?
There is a little bit. Being that it's so much lower, what you have to do is drill some new holes in the frame.
Okay.
So these threads stick out a little ways, yeah, you're right. And what happened is, because these are the correct length bolts for this to be installed on the frame, it just looks kind of suspicious. But once you drill the holes and you got the width of the frame, then the threads won't stick out so far. So it's a couple holes you drilled. So all the pickup points are moved up about 2 inches.
But no welding, no gussets have to be put on, nothing like that.
No.
Literally, if you have a way to drill a hole in your frame rail, you can install this at home on your own.
Yep.
So tell us about the limiters. We talked about, basically the movement, how much adjustability you have, but I see you've also got limiters built into it.
Yeah, what we did, Bill, is we built a suspension limiter in the form of a cable here. So there was no good way to put a suspension limiter or a droop stop on the suspension. So we came up with this idea. There's a nice set of spacers with this cable. It's got the correct length from the factory. And what it does is keep the suspension from drooping too far and having some suspension bind issues. So it's kind of a little feature you put in. It's pretty common in race cars and high-level cars like that. So.
Now, if we're changing all this, we're talking about a pretty significant drop. What about bump steer? Looks like you got a solution for that.
Oh, good question. Yeah. So bump steer, basically, it's the amount of suspension change, toe-in change through the operational range of the height. So what we do is we have a bump steer kit. So you can actually get the steering to run perpendicular with the lower control arm when everything's adjusted to the height you want.
So Dave, all the suspension changes and geometry changes, what's your solution for bump steer?
Good question, Bill. So in any vehicle, when you change the height of the vehicle, the toe changes. So what happens is we want to be able to adjust the bump steer once you get the vehicle at the height you want it at. So we have a bump steer kit that we have incorporated with the suspension system you see here, so you can change the height of it to make sure it has the right amount of bump steer for the height that you're going to run.
And Dave, you had said something about the ball joints you want to talk about.
Yeah, we have a unique ball joint, Bill. What it is, it's instead of having a traditional ball joint where you bolt it into the upper control arm, or sometimes you push it into the lower control arm, press fit if you will, our ball joint is made part of the weldment here. We have a weldment can here, if you will, here, a housing, and all the components get fed into this housing, which makes the ball joint lighter and more efficient, along with our aluminum cross shaft. So with all these upgrades I just talked about, this makes for a race car inspired suspension for your C10 hot rod truck.
So tell us a little bit about the difference between the fitment among the C10 years.
Good question. So C10s were like 63 to 72. C10 square body was 73 to 87. So the front suspension, everything you see out here from the frame out, that fits all the year ranges. Our Crossmember and our Retro Kit, they're split between both the 2 year ranges. So one part number for the C10, a different part number for the C10 square body, which is 73 to 87.
So if you have a C10 in one of those years, you're looking for a killer front suspension, definitely something new to check out.